Welcome back to another episode of I Know, a Solo Beatles video cast where we talk all things solo Beatles. Now, I am your host, Hudson Ranney, and today, first of all, I want to bring on my fellow moderator, Lucas Hammer of the Ringo Rama podcast.
Hello, peace and love, peace and love.
And I have a very, very special guest joining us, a special live edition. We have a round head, and his head is not round. But yeah. So Gary Burr, welcome to the show.
I'm really glad to be here, Lucas, Hudson. It's great. It's nice to see the young people digging on the Beatles stuff and digging on the solo stuff as well. That's where some real gems are.
Yeah. Now, question: are you familiar with like all four solo careers of the Beatles?
I think I'm like everybody, where I'm sure there are periods in their creative lives where they strayed away from my tastes. So I stopped buying the records, and then if I would hear good things about a record, I would buy it and check it out. I'm not wildly up to date on what George did, but I'm pretty familiar with the Paul stuff.
What's your favorite Paul album?
Probably Ram.
Okay, good.
That's a good one.
Correct.
Did I pass the test?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Beatles album?
Abbey Road.
Okay. You're feeling it. Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
So I just want to ask you, first of all, what are like some of your earliest influences as a songwriter and as a musician?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was a kid, just a couple years older than you guys, I went to Woodstock, the original Woodstock. And I was there with this guy that had a car and was driving, and I didn't know anybody else that was going, except my sister, and I wouldn't be caught dead going to a rock festival with my sister. So I got a ride with this guy, and we sat for the weekend, and he played the drums. And I was learning guitar, so I came home, and we had decided to start a band. And then I got my leg broken playing soccer in high school. And I was flat on my back with a body cast from here down to my toes. And I worked on playing the guitar, and it was mostly to Beatle albums, Neil Young, Carole King, things like that. Those were my early influences. But, pretty much when you're that bored by laying on your back with a cast on, you listen to anything.
Yeah, I'm glad you've recovered since.
Well, actually, I have 2 artificial knees because of that soccer accident, but that's okay.
Yeah.
They held out as long as they could.
So, when did you first when did you realize, this is what I want to do as a living?
Kind of there, I was sitting there watching everybody on stage and just knew that I wanted to do something in the music business. I was in that great time period growing up when I was a little older than you, when amazing things were happening. It was kind of the first time that you would see kids your age on TV, and they were doing it as a career. Before that, it was like guys in orchestras and stuff. But when I was your age, seeing the Stones or the Beatles on TV, your parents could never say to you again, well, that's all fun for a hobby, but you can't make a living at it. You can go, no, look, they're making a living out of it. And it opened the door. They couldn't say boo about my choices.
Yeah, because, you got to do what you want in life. Now, Lucas, I'm going to let you ask a couple questions now.
Okay, so if we're moving along, so how did you really get into professionally songwriting?
The funny thing is, before I was a professional, I came to town and I started a band with that guy after I got back on my feet. And we used to do Beatles and Stones and Byrds and all those kinds of songs. And at some point, all the guys in the band all looked at me and said, the guitar player in every one of those bands is the guy that writes the songs. You're supposed to write the songs. And okay. So I tried writing songs, and first they were just total like rip-offs of a Neil Young song or a Beatles song. They were like, I could have gotten sued. But eventually I started to write more and more in my own voice. And as I got older and played in bands, eventually I started to do songs. I started to write songs that I honestly thought they could be on the radio. And that's when I started to think, I got to get these songs to somebody. And I found somebody in New York City to listen to my songs, and he liked them. And he started sending them to people, and I got my first cut from down in Nashville.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you've done a lot of prolific country stuff. The first hit, from what I've heard, is Love's Been a Little Bit Hard on Me, or Life's Been a Little Bit Hard on Me,
Love,
which was a top 10 smash in '82.
Yeah, I was an electrician. I'd go and be an electrician all day, and then at night I'd come home, sit in the basement, and write songs and try to write something that would save me from being an electrician. So, and then one day I wrote that one, and that guy that I told you about in New York that liked my stuff, he sent it down to Nashville. And the next thing I know, I get a phone call saying it's gonna, it's been recorded and it's gonna be on the radio. And it was a pop hit, which was a lot better than country back then, because there was 50 pop radio stations for every one country station. So it was so profitable, that one first song, that I've never been anything but a professional songwriter since then. And that was 20 years before you were born.
Yeah, which is scary.
Yeah, so now I'm going to
Scary
pass
for
back
you.
over to HUD.
So when did you first become friends with Mark Hudson?
He and I wrote for the same publishing company. He wrote for the LA branch. I wrote for the Nashville branch. Because once I had that hit in Nashville, we started sending more songs down there, and I started to get more hits, and I still lived up in New England. And eventually I moved down to Nashville and signed with Universal Music. And he wrote for Universal. So at some point, somebody there sent me to LA to write songs with this Mark Hudson guy. And he wasn't quite as insane then as he was now. But we wrote one song, and it was, it was kind of like, okay. And then we ended up at a songwriter camp in France, in a castle in France. And he and I just hung out for the whole 2 weeks, just laughing and writing songs and having fun. So that's when I, became best buds with the other Hudson.
Funny thing is, Ken Michaels, who I've known who's interviewed you before, first thing he asks me when I first spoke to him was if I was named after Mark Hudson, funnily enough.
No, I wouldn't want to put that on anybody.
Yeah. So moving on, you're friends with Mark. Mark. So what year exactly was? So in 1992, Time Takes Time comes out, obviously. And do you remember Mark's reaction getting involved with Ringo?
I don't think I even had met him yet when he first did that first album. The first album he worked on that I knew of was Vertical Man.
He had done backing vocals in Time Takes Time.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah,
all right. Yeah, I guess he didn't produce it or write it all with him the way he did. And, that was because he and Ringo shared a lawyer.
Yeah.
And so, Ringo wanted to get back into the game, and he talked to his lawyer and said, "Who you got? Set me up with somebody." And they didn't have anybody good, so they sent Mark.
So, when did you first get the call to be in the Roundheads along with Steve and Mark and Ringo?
I was, I think I sang on a few songs on Vertical Man, but I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I think you were also in the Bobby Doll video.
Well, yeah, but that was because right when he was finishing up the record, they wanted to shoot a video, and they got asked to do VH1 and a few other things. And I came home one day, and there was a message on my answering machine, saying, "Gary, it's Mark. I'm putting a band together, and we're going to go to London. We're going to rehearse. Joe Walsh is going to be in the band. We're going to shoot a video, and then we're going to come back to America. We're going to play a couple of shows, and then we're going to do VH1. And we can offer you," and then he named a price for my participation. So I called him back, and I got his answering machine. I said, "Mark, it's Gary. Will Ringo take a check?" Because I would pay Ringo to do that. He doesn't have to pay me. I'll do that. So I asked him if Ringo would take a check, if I would pay him that amount of money to do it. So obviously I said yes. And had never met him. Flew over to London. Big rehearsal studio somewhere outside of London. And we were rehearsing for a couple of days before he was supposed to show up. And Mark is on stage, and I'm sitting in the back of the room changing the strings on my mandolin. And Mark and I are having a conversation about, who's singing what on this song, blah, 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 blah. And I see somebody walk in, and they stand right in front of me. And I'm saying to myself, "Hey, jerk, get your ass out of my face." I'm talking. And then I realized that the person standing next to that ass looked a lot like Barbara. And then I said, "Oh, that would make this ass Ringo's ass." So I'm so glad I didn't yell at him and say, "Move your ass out of the way." And I didn't meet him until we actually all went up on stage. And it was like, "Ringo, Gary, Ringo, let's start playing the first song."
And do you remember what that first song was?
It was, It Don't Come Easy.
Oh, wow. Great
That was
song.
the song in that set.
Pardon me?
That was the first song in that set, The Bottom Line.
Yeah, it was a good intro song.
Yeah. And great guitar work on that song, I think.
I actually, until Joe showed up, I got to play the other electric guitar, and then Joe showed up, and I didn't have to do it anymore.
What was your reaction when Joe Walsh walked in the room?
Kind of like shocked and amazed, but it was toned down a little because I was already shocked that I was in the room with a Beatle. So now being in a room with an Eagle, it was sort of like, but it was, he was very jet lagged. So he was kind of out of it but great guy. It was really fun to play with him.
I can imagine. And, I'm going to hand it over to Lucas, and then for a couple more questions, and I want to talk about some of the songs that you worked on with Ringo.
Cool.
We got a little list of songs going. So going back, so when did you didn't really play much on the Christmas album. You may have done a little bit of vocals, but I think the first major thing you're involved with Ringo on was the Ringo Rama album in 2003.
Yeah.
Well, how'd you get invited to those sessions?
Ringo just basically wanted the core of the Roundheads to just come to England and write the next album. So me, Steve Dudas, Mark, we all went over there, and we were joined by Dean Grickel, who was a lyricist. And he just wanted the whole group. He just loved the vibe of the group. He loved, that we're all getting along. And we all just went over to a little town about an hour and a half out of London. And he had a studio in the back, and we just wrote songs every day. We'd wake up, go write a song, have dinner, and then come back and record the song after dinner.
Wow.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It was an unbelievable time.
Yeah, of course. There was a lot of those sessions produced 16 songs. There were 11 you wrote in England and 5 that were written back at Mark's studio in California.
Right. What the studios?
Yep. Yeah, that place is it's just all photos and cool stuff. It's a cool place.
It's an unbelievable. Have you been there or just seen pictures?
I've seen pictures. There's not really a precise area on what it is. I've tried to track it down for a while.
It was great, and we were just really prolific. Ringo would walk in the morning and go, either here's the kind of song I want to write, or I was on the treadmill and I thought of these words, so this is going to be the title of our song. And then we would grab whatever instrument we felt like, a bass, mandolin, banjo, guitar. I mean, that's why we all played everything. That's why on some tracks I'm playing bass, playing guitar, playing banjo. It's just when we were writing, we just tried to have every song be a little different. So we'd always go, wait, you did that last time. This time, do this. That was really a fun way to do it. And they just kept pouring out. There was a couple of them where Dean brought in an idea from home because he's a lyricist, so he would have a big chunk of lyric written. But most of them were just, right there, kneecap to kneecap.
Yeah, this may be a little bit of a more niche question. During the sessions, there was, from what I can see in the documentary, there was some sort of running joke in the sessions where Mark had a prosthetic nose, like a fake little plastic prosthetic nose. Do you know the story behind that?
Yeah, I do. And you know what? What do you think the story is behind that?
Mark wanted to outnose Ringo.
No, it's simpler than that. We were videoing that day, and Mark woke up with a pimple the size of the Buick on the tip of his nose. And he's going, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then when the time came, he showed up with that thing. So people think he's trying to out Ringo, but really he just had another mark growing on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we should get to the songs thing. So
far away.
So the first one I want to start with is English Garden, which I'm gonna, because my memory is terrible, from Ringo Rama, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay. What was some of the inspirations behind that song?
Ringo said that he had really fond memories of one of the homes that he lived in. One of the estates that he owned during the Beatle days. And, him and George, they love gardens. And he just talked about how inspiring it was. And we said, well, let's write a song about it. And we knew that it was going to have to be kind of almost like a ukulele kind of a song. And he got really excited about that. And then at the end, we wanted there to be the sound of rain, and it was pouring out. So we actually ran under umbrellas. We ran a microphone out into the garden just to record the real sound of rain that you hear at the end of the song. And then at one point, Barbara came by with a horse, and we recorded the sound of the horse. You hear the horse hooves, and you hear Barbara talk to Ringo, and all that was real. That wasn't from some audio archive. We were out there in the rain with umbrellas while the rain was coming down, and it was just a lovely, lilting kind of a song. I really, that's one of the prettier songs on that album.
It really is.
And of course, it comes to Let 'Em In.
Pardon me? Lucas?
And of course, it comes into a little bit of Let 'Em In at the end, which is very nice ending to that album.
Yeah, that's pretty. That was pretty funny. Ringo told us that he called Paul and said, "I just want to give you a heads up that on my new album I sang a little bit of da da da." And Paul said, "Well, you should have let somebody know." And Ringo said, "I'm letting you know."
Before I ask about another song, was Ringo, could you still kind of see the emotion from Ringo from losing George back in 2001 because it was like the first album that he had done without George's presence.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had a lot of, obviously he was so much on his mind that he had a lot of George stories, and a lot of telling us about George's last days and how he went and visited him and hearing all that kind of stuff. And he was certainly on his mind. Plus we had the Never Without You. So obviously that was a song that he wrote with Gary Nicholson that started out about George, and then the more they wrote it, the more they made it be really about George.
Do you remember playing on that song Never Without You with Eric Clapton? And
Yeah, sure.
Do you mind talking about that experience?
It was, we couldn't believe that he was coming over. He played on that, and he played on another song, Imagine Me There. And we couldn't believe he was coming over. It was like we were all, kind of crazy and on our best behavior. And then this, like a station wagon pulls up, and it's him. And it's not like an entourage or anything. He gets out. I'm kind of watching. He gets out and he goes around to the back and he pulls an amp out of the back and he carries the amp up to Ringo's place, comes in, hey, everybody, and, sets the amp down and, came out and listened to the, one song at a time and then went out there and played. And everybody was, kind of like, it was kind of like he was a magnet, but we were all the same polarity. So we were all pushed against the walls because nobody wanted to be a jerk and be like, oh my God, it's Eric Clapton. But as soon as he finished the last note of the last song, the polarity reversed and everybody just went boom and just surrounded him. And Ringo yelled, "Run, Eric, it's the Americans." And he was very nice, took pictures with everybody and signed things. And just to watch him play. He was learning the songs as we went, but he never hit a wrong note, ever. That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah, he's unbelievable.
He may look like a guy who bags stuff at a grocery store, but he can play guitar like a boss.
Yeah, and I think that's how he got involved in it. He lived in the same town, that same town that we were working in. He lived there too. And Hudson ran into him at a grocery store.
Yeah.
And said, "Hey, I'm working, up the street. Would you come over and play on a couple of things?" And he said, "Sure." And then that's when he showed up.
Wow.
I don't run into people like that in my grocery store.
No. I don't run into anybody famous in a grocery store, even though Steven Tyler does live 45 minutes from me.
Oh, Steven Tyler's a great friend of Mark.
Oh yeah. They're like brothers. That's been a long relationship.
Yeah. Now I'll let you talk about a couple songs. Ask about a couple songs, Lucas.
So the first song I want to talk about is "What Love Wants to Be." Probably one of the most beautiful moments on Ringo Rama. Of course, you played guitar on that song and wrote it.
Right.
So, what's the story behind that one?
Do you remember what the credits are on that?
Let me look that up.
Are on that.
Pardon me?
It says you're on it, and you've written.
No, I know I wrote it. I'm just trying to think because I kind of remember being at his house in LA writing it on a sofa with him. And then we recorded it. I may be thinking of a different.
Starkey Hudson Burr.
Okay, no, so I'm thinking of a different one. That was I started that song. I tended to get to the studio earlier than everybody else because I like to, get my creative juices going. So there were a couple of times when I went to the studio before everybody else. It was just me and the engineer. And I went into the studio room and picked up the guitar. And I just thought he could use a really nice country kind of ballad. And I knew that once Hudson got his hands on it, it wouldn't sound country. But I got a little bit of a start going on it. And Ringo came in and said, what is that? And I said, I was just thinking maybe it was something I'd throw in the pot today. And he went, I love it. Let's work on it. And I think by the time everybody else showed up, me and Mark and he had pretty much finished it.
Wow.
Yeah. I love that song.
Yeah, a lot of the upper roundheads play on that too. Some of the auxiliary ones, like Paul Santo, he's on that a little.
Yeah, he was our engineer.
Who's the engineer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's also
and
a
of
great
course Jim Cox,
Who?
who's on a lot of Jim Cox, who's on a lot of Ringo stuff. He's very much an auxiliary roundhead.
Absolutely. He was part of he was in the Roundheads for that whole London thing, that first album. And I mean, anything that Hudson records in LA, Jim Cox is on. He's incredible. He and I went shopping once, and we stopped in London. We stopped in a record store. He's the kind of guy that if you pick up an album and it's like, oh, the Isley Brothers, and name a song, he'll go, oh yeah, the horn chart was written by da-da-da-da, and the horn player's on that. That's a great horn part. It's so-and-so about da-da. And no matter what, then you could go to an Olivia Newton-John album and go, oh yeah, the keyboard player is a good friend of mine, blah, blah. He knows everybody that's ever played on any record back to Caveman. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's an incredible player.
So the second song I'd like to talk about is one of the bigger, I'd like to say one of the bigger songs from the Roundhead era, but I don't think any of these songs were really that big. It's Fading In and Out from the Choose Love album.
Yep. I love that song. That one rocked pretty well.
Yeah.
That was that was one of the ones where we all just showed up in the morning, and he came in with that title, Fading In, Fading Out. And we basically said, we don't know what that means. And that's where being a Nashville country songwriter really helps, because one of the first things we always do with a title is try to think of 5 different things it could mean and then pick the most interesting one. So that one was definitely one where we all went in, picked a different instrument. I don't even remember what I played on that one, but it was really fun to record that one. Ringo's amazing. Ringo, from back in the Beatle days, you know, they would do 30, 40, 50 takes of a song. So every time we would record the track of this song, it was a little tricky, and you know, Hudson would go, I don't think we have it yet. Let's go in and try it again. And, you know, I kept waiting for Ringo to go, look, the drums are pretty much right. You guys fix it. He always wanted to play it from the top with us over and over and over and over again. It was great. And I love that song. I love that song too. That one rocks.
There's lots of footage on the bonus DVDs for some of these albums of you guys really working it out in the studio, and some of your acoustic run-throughs, which are very nice alternatives to the finished versions.
Yeah. I'm really glad they caught all that. That was Brent Carpenter, who was over there filming everything. He's Ringo's videographer, and he was just over there making sure it all got captured. Very happy.
Yeah. So now moving over to Hudson over here for a few more songs over here. I always get the finger wrong.
So I want to talk about the song Can't Do It Wrong, which I'm never going to remember the album that you... Was that What's My Name? Why Not?
Why
Oh my
Not?
gosh.
Right.
I get confused. What are your memories from that, writing that with Ringo?
Do you have the credits in front of you there? Was that
It's
just start. It's post Hudson era.
Okay, so you know, later on when he was spending more and more time in LA, every time I would go to LA, I would go over his house and we'd write a song. And it was the same kind of deal. I'd come in, we'd go to his office, you know, grab one of his guitars, try to get it in tune. And he would either come in with a whole bunch of music tracks that he would play on his drums and in his keyboard, or he would come in with a title and an idea. And this one, he came in with the idea, and the idea was just that kind of, I don't know what it is, but it's like, as long as I'm doing it, I can't do it wrong or something like that. And, you know, once again, we have to think about what that is. And it just immediately sounded like a perky, peppy kind of a song. And when we write songs at his house, I mean, we're usually done in 90 minutes or so. You know, that was one of the early ones I wrote with him, and I didn't know how he wanted to do it. And at some point, I kind of said, well, do you have things to do? You want me to, you know, try to finish up this lyric? And he said, no, I want to be here till the last word is wrestled to the ground. I got nowhere to go. This is what we're doing. This is what I'm doing today. So that really, you know, he's got a great work ethic, you know, and you know, he doesn't take writing frivolously. He really wants to do it well. And that was a really, I really love that song. Long as you do, and it's really fun.
Yeah,
it is. And the last song I will ask you about is one of my favorites from Choose Love, Free Drinks, which I believe is the closer, which I think is just a great little closer.
Yeah. That, if I'm recalling correctly, that kind of came from a jam session. Is that the one that's got the like all that? I think it is. And we just wanted it to have. We were just jamming, and we recorded it. And then we kind of went, what can we do with this? And we were trying to find something that sounded like a chant. And I think Ringo just said, you know, free drinks. All right, well, that's good because, you know, you're going to be in a club and the whole audience is going to be yelling free drinks. And maybe some club will give them all free drinks and you'll be their hero. And then there was a part in the song where we said, this sounds like the music that is played during an Italian spy movie when they're driving their little car down the mountain and you hear this. And so we purposely tried to do that. We did the vocal, all that stuff. And that, I was driving the other day with my wife and we were listening to the Beatles station and that song came on and she had never heard it. And she's like, oh, this is so great. What a great song. And then she looked at me and goes, did you write this? I go, yeah. She goes, son of a, I don't even know what the hell you do for a living. So it was so fun to hear it again. That's a great choice.
Yeah. Love the way that one ends with the false ending. It comes back in with a little jam and then it goes back into like a reverse.
Yeah. That's Mark. Mark, he's a really creative guy. He can get sounds. He can get all kinds of crazy sounds. Plus, he works with great engineers. So he goes, "What can we do to make it?" And they'll go, "Oh, this." It's a marvel to watch them work.
Now, Lucas, I'll pass you on for the 2 more songs.
Okay.
Getting back up on my list. Okay, so the next song I'm going to talk about is the title track from the 2005 album, Choose Love. Of course, this is a very like Revolver-ish track in my opinion.
Yeah. What are the credits on that? I don't think is that a Roundhead?
That's like the full band. Because that's the same album as Fading In and Out and Free Drinks and all those songs.
Yeah, that was one of the first ones we did. It was great because every time we finished writing a song, we stuck the lyric sheet up on the board. So you've got this huge wall of all the songs, like you say, like 12, 15, 16 songs. Choose Love was one of the first ones we did. And that, Ringo loves to write songs about peace and love. And he came in and he had that title and he just said, just choose love. It'll be really easy to write. And it was. We all chipped in. Everybody played on it. I don't remember what I played on it. I don't have any real story about it. I hate to say, I just remember it was
in the Choose Love EPK of you guys kind of mapping it out, and you're just on acoustic guitar.
Yeah, well, that sounds right. Yeah. I wonder if we recorded it in Hudson's studio.
It wasn't, because the footage is in Ringo's, cupboard.
Okay. Yeah, we cut a lot of really good tracks in Hudson's little studio, but Ringo's place was fabulous. The drum kit he had was the one that he had from Abbey Road, and it was just, I'd get behind it and play, and then Ringo would come and he'd go, Gary, they're not toys, and he'd kick me off the drums. But yeah, that was one of the first ones. I played acoustic guitar, sang. It was great.
Yeah, and you also kind of bring that back on the next album, on Think About You, which is basically, in my opinion, just a continuation of Choose Love. It's almost got the same exact riff and beat. Yeah, that was. I noticed that too, but I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't vocalize that. That was none of my business. But yeah, there were, obviously there's certain styles that Ringo likes and Mark likes, and a certain order to doing things. But that was another one we all wrote, we all played on. It was great. Yeah,
I'm sorry. We'll catch some where I have more interesting memories, but some of them just kind of blurred by because we were doing them every day. And some of these I haven't thought about or heard in years. So
yeah.
Hit me up another one. Pardon?
Some of them are pretty deep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the next thing I want to talk about, I don't think he had a hand in writing this, but I just want to know how it was in the studio recording the song Liverpool 8 from his 2008 album, which wasn't a Hudson era stuff, but you're listed as the backing vocalist, along with the whole Roundheads group.
Yeah. I think he wrote that with
David Stewart.
Yeah, Dave Stewart. That was we had done most of that album, and he and Dave liked to write those stroll down memory lane songs. So he had that song, and the reason we're all listed on it is because at the end there's like a soccer chant. Liverpool, Liverpool, and that's us. That's all the Roundheads doing about 10 tracks of trying to sound like a stadium chanting for the Liverpool football team.
Yeah, of course. I think that album could have done fine without the Dave Stewart production, but that's just me. It definitely marks a departure from Choose Love and Ringo Rama.
It really hurt that it got taken away and redone. Some of the first mixes, some of the Mark mixes of that album, especially the one about Buddha and Jesus under the Bodhi tree. The first mixes of that were great, and it never was that good again.
A lot of times I just go into like Audacity or just an audio editing tool and try to get out some of that digitation just to try to make it sound a little better.
Yeah, everything sounded really, really affected, but it was when we first did it, it was real dry. And I just remember I on that song, I played this sort of half mandolin, half banjo that Ringo had.
Oh, the banjo? Oh, that's Mark's thing.
Yeah, and this is something that he bought at an auction, and it used to belong to June Carter Cash, Johnny Cash's wife.
Oh,
so there was a cool history to it, and it was really fun. I love the pictures and the videos of me playing that. That was a little bit of history and tough to keep it in tune.
Yeah, I don't think there were videos of that song bar the title track.
Yep.
Maybe that was stuff for the DVD that never came out.
I know that things happened during the making of that made that album not be as good as it could have been.
Yeah. So turn it over to Hudson for some more.
So I've got some questions. Do you think that at some point we will ever see a vinyl release or like some sort of at least a reissue of the Mark Hudson albums? Because I've looked and they're all incredibly hard to find and out of print.
The actual Mark Hudson albums, like the artist and that kind of stuff.
Oh, I'd love to see the
artist. You're talking about the Ringo album during that Mark Hudson produced period, which I know I'm biased, but I still think that's the best work he's ever done. Sonically and creatively, I do. Pardon?
That it's that Ringo and Time Takes Time. Those are the strong material from his solo career.
Right. And I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. I don't think there's enough money in vinyl right now, and they'd have to be going pretty deep in the catalog to put out those records. I wish they would. That'd be fun to have.
We actually got the Christmas song, but that's the worst of all the Mark.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool. We went over.
Christmas albums are evergreens.
Yeah. I remember my biggest memory of that is I went over with him to Abbey Road where he was recording the bagpipes. And all the guys playing bagpipes on whatever song that was, they all kind of drank during the session. So by the end, it was pretty rowdy. And they actually were just a little out of tune for the song. So we had to Verispeed the machine to make the song be in tune with the drunken bagpipe players.
Wow.
You do what you got to do.
Now, Gary, because our time is running a little short, what are you up to today, and what would you like to plug?
Oh, well, my wife and I do 2 internet shows every week. We do a Wednesday night show on a platform called Stage It at 8:30 Central Time, where we play our songs, some of our hits and other songs that everything that we write. And then on Sunday at 2:00 on our Middleman Burr Facebook page, we do a show every 2:00 every Sunday. And I'm flying out to do a show out in Utah this weekend. I'm in a trio band with Hudson called Laurel Canyon with another friend of ours, Mark Mirando, and we do all Crosby, Stills and Nash and Young. So we're playing all over August and September. We're everywhere playing. It's really fun. It's fun that we all get to stay in touch. But that's what I'm doing. What are you guys doing?
Yeah. I actually saw you Ringo's newest video. That was pretty cool.
Cool. It is. It's a lot of fun. And, just trying to stay busy, trying to write all the time just to keep the muscle going. Yeah.
And is there any possible Burr-Starkey collaborations in the future?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I just talked to him, and he has a new EP coming out. So he said, give me till October, then come out to LA and we'll write a song. So yes, that's still continuing. That's not going to stop. I have too much fun. It's too big of a thrill. I want more Starkey Burr songs in my catalog because Starkey Burr is a fun thing to say.
Yeah. Well, tell Ringo he's welcome on the show anytime.
I'll pass the word on. I'll tell Hudson it was fun, but you may start the interview at 14 and 15, but you'll end it at 30 and 31.
So first of all, I'm just gonna get Lucas. Why don't you just tell us about Ringo Rama and give us your contact?
We're going through every single Ringo album. I'm in the late 70s right now at his worst period, so it's very fun. But soon, in a couple episodes, we'll pick up. We'll get into that Mark Hudson era. It'll be fun. Yeah, it's a very fun show. I have a lot of fun.
Do me a favor. Send me the links to those. Are they archived so you can see them after they're live?
Oh, well, it's just a page. You can stream it anywhere. You can stream it on your phone. You can watch it on YouTube.
Cool. Send me the information. You've got the right email address. I'd love to stay in touch. I'd love to see what you think. That would be really fun.
And as for me, my show, I Know, which is obviously what this is broadcasted on, you can find us here, there, and everywhere. Of course, I had to make that a pun. You can send all your feedback, your questions, comments, criticisms at iknowpodcast@icloud.com, and follow our website. And I do want to just thank IPG. They sent me a bunch of books, including the sound pictures in maximum volume about George Martin, and which my friend Ken Womack wrote, great Beatles scholar. So I just want to thank you again, Gary. Stay for a second. And as for Gary Burr, Lucas Hammer, and I am your host, Hudson Ranney. Shine on and peace and love.